The Chicago Bulls have had what many people have labeled as a smart offseason for the franchise that needed one. Re-signing Nikola Vucevic and Kobe White to team-friendly 3-year deals, bringing in Javon Carter and Torrey Craig to very cap-friendly deals that, were deals that the Bulls needed. One of the biggest, though, mistakes that the Bulls, or many Bulls fans are looking at right now as a mistake, is not finding a way to retain Javon Freeman-Liberty. On tonight's episode, we're going to talk about and ask, will Javon Freeman-Liberty be the next player to come through the Windy City Bulls that the Chicago Bulls regret not holding on to? We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod with every social media platform that we're on. But let's go ahead and get into the content for today. So, Javon Freeman-Liberty is the topic of tonight's episode. And, Javon Freeman-Liberty, a player that is from Chicago, right, that played at DePaul and that really worked his way up to playing with the Chicago Bulls, eventually making their G League team last season and playing a handful of games for the Windy City Bulls. 17 games played last season, and in those 17 games, playing 30 minutes per game, averaging 18.4 points per game on 49.8% shooting and shooting 37.6% from the free throw line, chipping in 5.7 rebounds, almost 3 assists, 1.4 steals per game. Javon Freeman-Liberty played extremely well at that G League level. And so seeing him come up and again be a player that the Bulls really kind of found, right? Undrafted free agent they found, they brought into their system, was from the city of Chicago, and really got to see for the context of G League basketball really thrive. Now, it all wasn't perfect. Javon Freeman-Liberty, even with the Windy City Bulls last season, having a defensive rating of 118.9, which, considering the competition at the G League level, does breed some cause for concerns over his ability to defend at the NBA level, even though coming in a legit 6'4" with a extremely long wingspan, a player that theoretically on paper brings a lot of kind of the makeup that it seems like our best basketball president of basketball operations, Arturas Karnisova, likes a lot. But at the end of the day, right, the Bulls, after he goes through a summer league season in which he was clearly the best player on that summer league team, outshining the Bulls' 18th overall pick in Dalen Terry by the nature of scoring and just being the best player on that team day in and day out, outshining Julian Phillips, Adama Sinago, right, playing more games than Justin Lewis. And so what it came down to is that when the Bulls made and were making the final couple of decisions on their roster, many Bulls fans thought Javon Freeman-Liberty absolutely deserved a deal. Even myself, I was on this podcast saying that I hope Javon Freeman-Liberty was given an opportunity, at least a camp deal, to take that partially guaranteed contract away from Carlik Jones, a player that I do look at Javon Freeman-Liberty as being a better player than. Carlik Jones, who equally, yes, he was the G League MVP last year, scored tons of points in the G League, but is never really, he doesn't project to be an NBA level talent, in my opinion. He's too small to really guard effectively at that NBA level, and I also think Carlik Jones is not going to be able to get his shot off at the NBA level as he was in the G League. And so after going through the season and the disappointment surrounding Dalen Terry's summer league performance, many Bulls fans pivoted towards Javon Freeman-Liberty being a player that the Bulls had to hold on to and retain. And when that did not happen, the Bulls, who in the same day announced deals with Ayo Dosunmu and Onuralp Bitim, the Turkish player, it got announced shortly thereafter that Javon Freeman-Liberty signed a 2-way contract with the Toronto Raptors, prompting many Bulls fans to ask, is Javon Freeman-Liberty going to be the next Spencer Dinwiddie or Max Strus, players that worked themselves up through the Bulls system and were eventually not retained by the Chicago Bulls? Spencer Dinwiddie specifically, right? Another long point guard who at that time the Chicago Bulls absolutely could have needed a point guard considering the injuries around Derrick Rose in 2016. The fact of the matter is we traded and we got Spencer Dinwiddie for Cameron Barstow, which is still a surprising name to bring up. And so he was waived by the Bulls in July. We then re-signed him again later in July, and he had 2 stints. We had 2 looks at him. And for at that time, the D League, Spencer Dinwiddie averaged 19.4 points, 8.1 assists, 3.7 rebounds in 37 minutes per game. The Bulls do not end up retaining him. He goes later on that year to the Brooklyn Nets, and the rest of the story of Spencer Dinwiddie's career is written. Ends up turning into an extremely solid starter. That first year in Brooklyn, only averaging 7.3 points per game, but starting 18 games at the NBA level. The following season, starting 58 out of 80 games, averaging 12.6 points per game. And then the year after that, starting 4 games, but playing 68 games, averaging 16.8 points per game, finally culminating in a 20.6 point per game season for the Brooklyn Nets. While Spencer Dinwiddie has not been a super big winning player over the course of his NBA career, you have to look back at it and wonder, had the Bulls been able to have him as a prospect over that time, how things would have looked differently, right? Then you look at Max Strus, a player that played with the Chicago Bulls between 2019 2020, ends up in 2020 going to the Miami Heat and eventually going on a championship or a run to the NBA Finals. They weren't able to win the championship, but being a key part and cog for that team over the next 3 years, eventually being a player that averaged 11.5 points per game for them. So overall, the Bulls, a team that does not pay the luxury tax, is not going to spend big money to bring in a lot of guys that you would think would try to find value in some of these undrafted guys that they've had in their system, seemingly by Chicago Bulls fans, failed another time with Javon Freeman-Liberty. Now, the story isn't written on Javon Freeman-Liberty, right? He signs only a 2-way deal with the Toronto Raptors. They lost their starting point guard, so maybe there is a path for him to eventually go to that roster. But ultimately, the potential that Javon Freeman-Liberty shown in G League last season and in Summer League just recently as a couple of weeks ago, many Bulls fans now ask why. Why yet again does it seem like the Bulls, yet a talented young player, slipped through their fingers, right? When they had a chance to really sign him at a cap-friendly deal. The Bulls, who need as much luck as possible for players that can turn into something, considering where we are, considering the salary cap situation with the Bulls, and considering just the fact of the matter is we have a cheap owner, and you think that a team would want to find value in places that they can. Now, I love Arnold Bittum, and I love his potential. I actually think his potential is higher than a Javon Freeman-Liberty's. But still, with that said, could the Bulls have found a spot, right, for Javon Freeman-Liberty? And so there's a lot of questions around that. But, you know, a lot of Bulls fans are wondering, are they going to eventually regret it? And my mindset on it is this. I do absolutely think there's a chance. I'm not ready to say like some Bulls fans are right now, already saying that this is a dumb deal and the Bulls are absolutely going to regret it. I'm not quite ready to say that it's that level quite yet, but I definitely think and see that it could be that. And Javon Freeman-Liberty has the chance to be yet another player from the city of Chicago on top of that could potentially be a regret that the Chicago Bulls did not hold on to. Now, I'm not one that's going to compare him and Ayo Dosunmu. I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to say that the Bulls should have let Ayo walk to sign a 2-way player in Javon Freeman-Liberty, but the question still remains, and I want to hear from you guys. Do you think that the Bulls will ultimately regret not finding a way to retain Javon Freeman-Liberty? Let me know all that down below. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, you can leave a text message and our voicemail. The number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like I like to end every episode on. Go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.